Thanks very much for that introduction, Chrissy. And I've tried to push our branding today on the slides as close as purple to as I could and get away with it. So I think I've succeeded in that. Afternoon, everyone, and congratulations on making it through to the afternoon of day 3. I'm very conscious that I'm holding you back from lunch. So as a person who has a tendency to get a little bit hangry, I'm very focused on keeping to time. So it's my privilege today to provide you with an update on what we're doing at Technology Metals with our Murchison Technology Metals Project and the role that vanadium will play in the clean energy future. Here's our disclaimer. Please read it in detail at your leisure. It's available on the ASX platform. Our corporate snapshot. We were listed in 2016 and we currently have around 210 million shares on issue and a market cap at the close of trade yesterday of $71 million. We closed the last quarter at the end of March with $8.1 million of cash on hand. Our top 20 shareholders hold about 58% of the stock, with Resource Capital Funds, the biggest of those, at 17.1%. The large part of our top 20 have been with us along the whole journey of our vanadium story, from the start at Gabonintha with our DFS in 2019, then as we drilled out Yarra Bubba to the south, and mid-last year we brought those two projects together as the Murchison Technology Metals Project. So Gabonintha plus Yarra Bubba equals the MTMP, and vanadium is the sole focus, and now I'm going to look at why you should be investing in us. It really only boils down to 4 key points. Our project fundamentals, our geology, our process flow sheet, and our jurisdiction are world-class. Our product, vanadium, is absolutely critical, and it's on every country's critical minerals list that has one. And it's important not just for the steel market and the battery transition, but on both of those factors, it's going to help us achieve a net zero future. Our team is really experienced. We're building a really terrific team here, and we've got the skills to deliver this project and return some value to our shareholders. And we're forming some really critical partnerships with some key customers and investors that are going to help us along this journey. So starting with the team, a lot of you probably are familiar with Ian. He's been a part of this story right from the very beginning, along with Michael and Sonu and John. They're all across the geology. They're very well respected with our local community members as well as our shareholders. Dave was officially appointed as the COO at the beginning of 2002, but he too has been involved with the project since the Gabonintha DFS, and he's been responsible for delivering a lot of major mining projects in the past. And he also learnt a lot about how not to do vanadium with his experience at Windermurra, which had a number of attempts at producing vanadium successfully. And then there's myself and Carmen, who joined in September 2022. Carmen has a wealth of major project experience through her time at Anglo American and in other global majors. And while I recently came out of Fortescue, I've had previous experience at Galaxy Resources, which held the Mount Catlin lithium deposit near Ravensthorpe, which has again been subject to another takeover announcement this morning as part of the Allchem transaction that was announced. But way back at the beginning, I was part of a company called Regis Resources, and I was part of the team there that took the company from exploration through to producing 300,000 ounces of gold per annum in about 5 years. And I've been really looking on the lookout for the opportunity to do that again and be part of a team that takes a company from the very beginnings of exploration through to that project development and operations. So I found TMT. And why did I choose? And keeping in mind, same as Mitch, I'm an accountant, so this is going to be really simple from a technical point of view. We've got a large, high-grade resource, a significant chunk of which we've managed to convert into a reserve, so about 45 million tonnes at 0.9% vanadium, which gives us around a 25-year life of mine. Our granted mining tenure covers the section of the ore body that have outcropped, meaning we've got the best access to fresh ore and less oxidation. If any of you sat through Dr. Sean Wren's presentation on RVT, this is the opposite to what he said, and that's okay. So we've done a lot of test work on our ore body, and we know that along this strike, fresh ore is best and will achieve the best results and highest recoveries for our style of mineralisation. There's nothing too fancy or innovative about our process flow sheet. We're using fairly proven vanadium processing technology. We've had to tweak it around the edges, but fundamentally, we're going to we've got really good access to natural gas in WA as well, and that's going to give us low cost emissions throughout that process. And all of this is going to give us a high purity vanadium product. So it's about 99% V2O5 is our final output. And our southern tenement at Yarrabubba also delivers a bonus product called ilmenite, which is a titanium dioxide for the first 9 years. And that revenue really helps keep our project economics really robust. We had, at the start of this year, we had a really positive letter of interest from the Danish Export Credit Agency, EKF, and they've put together high-level terms with the potential to fund us up to $150 million. So it's a really great start and a really positive impact for our project. So all of this is really great. So why aren't we in production already? A lot of shareholders have probably been coming past and asking us that of late. Not sure if you saw last week, but the Fraser Institute do an annual survey of mining attractiveness. And WA used to be top, and it was a great jurisdiction to work in. And we've recently lost that #1 spot to Nevada. And it's not on geological attractiveness. We're still showing really positive feedback and expectations from mining companies on the geology. But we've lost our top spot due to some of those difficulties that companies are experiencing around regulatory approvals and uncertainty. So, you know, I'm still really pleased that our project's in Australia, and we've got really good representation of other states in that top 10. And just outside the top 10, we've got Queensland at 13th. But it was kind of a relief, to be honest, to go, we're not the only ones struggling through this environmental approvals process. So where are we at with that? Really importantly, we are continuing to make progress on the environmental approvals. We've first referred our project back in 2019, and we last received comments back on revision 3 of our environmental review document late last year. And, you know, that's a long time between first referring it and getting comments back on the 3rd revision. And not all of that is to do with the regulatory process. A lot of it's also been due to us and making changes to our project. But the commentary coming out of the last revisions were a result of some of that changing legislative environment, particularly around greenhouse gas emissions and heritage engagement. The photo on the bottom left of this slide is from a couple of weeks ago, where we had a negotiation meeting with our traditional owners. Our traditional owners of the land where our project is are the Yunganaya people. And a couple of weeks ago, our full TMT board and the Yunganaya's prescribed body corporate had a very respectful and constructive meeting on some of those compensation payment negotiations, and we're moving much closer towards closing the gap and reaching an agreement on that. And that'll be covering the payments that are payable by us to the traditional owners through each stage of the process, through construction, operations, and then through mine closure. The other element of traditional owner engagement has been the drafting and development of a cultural heritage management plan. And there's also been a lot of activity on this front during the last few months to really develop a pathway towards delivering that plan and scheduling out all the on-country and other activities that we need to do as part of that. It's really important to note that finalising that plan is not a condition to achieving EPA approval, but the EPA has to be assured that we're on the right track and working constructively together, which I'm pretty confident that we are. On the greenhouse gas emissions side of things, we've been working hard to map out our pathway to net zero, which is another requirement of the EPA process. And this slide just shows how we're planning on doing that, first with using some of the known technologies to displace those carbon-based fuels with solar in electricity generation for the camp and other mine site infrastructure, then moving through the less sort of certain and well-known options of non-carbon fuels for the mining fleet, before cracking the last and hardest nut on the kiln. And how do you heat up a 130 metre long kiln that's 6 metres in diameter to 1200 degrees Celsius with something other than a carbon-based fuel? So really creative work being done by the team on heat efficiency and retaining the heat for as long as possible, so you're not losing as much and having to reheat it again. All right, so the other thing we've been really working very hard on is project economics. A lot of our people who have been following us for a while will know that late last year we went out to a commercial competitive tender process, and we got those the results back in, and in March we announced that we were going to partner with GRES and Iron Mine Contracting as well as FL Schmidt on the main packages required to deliver the project. And so this partnership really allows those key contractors inside the tent with the MTMP team and allow them to eradicate some of the inefficiencies and contingencies that might have been in their proposals because they were developed in isolation of each other. So once you can start working together and working out when certain bits of equipment can be installed, when certain construction materials will be available, you can start to really drive efficiency in some of those cost and schedule elements. And we're starting, it's early days, but we're starting to see some positive output from that process already. We're continuing to engage with APA under our early works agreement that we signed back in June 2022, I think. And they're making good progress through their traditional owner engagement, which is a process they have to follow as well through their pipeline corridor that we're proposing to get from, you know, where the pipeline currently ends around Windermere up to our project. So it's a 155 kilometre corridor, and they're having to work with 2 traditional owner groups on heritage surveys and negotiations. And lastly, you might have seen in our last quarterly announcement that we've signed a cooperation agreement with Midwest Ports Authority, who run the Port of Geraldton. And that's really important for not just shipping our product out, but also getting some of those important reagents in and on the truck and on the road to the port, to the mine site in Meekatharra. All right, so that's the project. What are we using vanadium for? It's mainly 2 uses that are driving demand throughout the globe, and that's steel use and batteries. So the steel's the historical use of vanadium, whereas the battery's the more emerging technology. Adding vanadium to steel basically increases its strength, so you use less steel, which means there's fewer carbon emissions in your end product. And the vanadium story in the batteries is the really cool sort of thematic that interested me and attracted me to TMT as a proposition. The VRFB technology was actually invented right here in the University of New South Wales in the mid-80s, and it's something that never really had its time in the sun until now, and we really can benefit from the benefits of a vanadium battery. And we've formed important relationships at TMT with potential off-takers on both sides of this demand spectrum. We've got the partnerships with CNMMC in China for a 2,000 tonne per annum binding offtake, as well as an MOU with Tata Steel out of India. And on the battery side, we've got our partnership with the Japanese electrolyte producer LE System, as well as the recently announced partnership with Delectric, who are an Indian battery manufacturer. Oops. Uh-oh. There we go. So in 2022, the vanadium market overall was pretty much in balance, with not much moving the dial from how it was used through steel and battery applications. But we can see in a lot of forecasts that the battery demand side is really expected to take off. And this is forecast to result in a 45,000 tonne per annum supply shortage by 2031. With the MTMP's production around 12,500 tonnes per annum, there's more than enough room for another couple of vanadium players in the market. So why vanadium batteries? They've got a lot of qualities that mean they're not going to displace lithium from the battery market. You're still going to need lithium batteries in your phone and your cars, but what they're actually really good for is that long duration energy storage for your solar and wind and other renewables projects, mainly because they don't catch fire, and they're also really long lasting. So they've got a 20-year life. The vanadium that you put in at the start is fully recyclable and recoverable at the end of it. And the vanadium acts as both the anode and the cathode through its different oxidation states. So you're really only relying on one chemical element. You don't need to find nickel and cobalt and other minerals to go with your lithium battery. Oh, my little clicker's not going. This chart really just shows where that VRFB sits in the energy storage mix. And the current expectations are we're going to need 50 gigawatts of energy storage capacity in Australia to meet our net zero target by 2050. China's really leading the way in VRFB deployment, and that's really on the back of the government in China saying they're not going to use lithium or sodium sulfur batteries for energy storage anymore due to the safety risks. So we can see that demand really changing China from a net exporter of vanadium to a net importer. The other big deployment of VRFBs is in North America, and this slide's got your key little back of the envelope calculation, is that it needs about 10 tonnes of V2O5 for 1 megawatt hour of battery storage. So we understand the importance of developing that downstream use case for our vanadium, and we're forming partnerships on that. So our partnership with LE System allows us to license their technology and build the electrolyte plant in Australia, and to work with partners like D'Electric to for them to build their electrolyte plants onshore in Australia, always using our feedstock as the supply source. And it also makes commercial sense because you want to be making the electrolyte near where you want to produce the battery. Getting stalked. I am really hungry, sorry. And so it's really important to be building that place where you want to be. I thought I had 2 minutes from the ding. Has it been 2 minutes?
Thought.
Oh, thought. So we all know about steel. That's important. I'll flick through these slides really quickly. India is where we're seeing a lot of the steel demand come from because they're developing their high-speed rail infrastructure. And our MOU with Tata is really positioning as well to take advantage of that thematic. Funding, nothing's really changed on funding. We're working really hard and we're kicking off our ITE process next week to support some of those funding discussions with our financiers. We started behind.
Bring it home. Come on, bring it home.
So we'll just recap back with why you need to be thinking about TMT as your next vanadium investment if you don't already have one in your portfolio. We've got a terrific project. We've got a fantastic team. Vanadium's absolutely critical for the clean energy transition, and we're working with the right people to deliver this project for you. So if you want to talk about all the things that I've missed out and skipped over in this, we're at booth 7. Bring your sandwich down and we can have a chat. Thank you.
All right.